If you're receiving this transmission, you are the resistance, declaring war on the New World Order. TruthRadioShow.com. Hi folks, my name is Dan Bidondi. I'm an occult and biblical researcher and also a radio talk show host for the Dan Bidondi Show on TruthRadioShow.com. And today we're going to have an awesome presentation. We're going to dabble and get into the deep, dark secrets of what these symbols mean, the very symbols that you carry every day, you work hard to make, and you use to pay your bills. That's right, it's the almighty dollar. The dollar bill for the United States of America. And today we're going to talk about and show you what these symbols really mean, regardless of what your schools have told you or what history books have told you. There's a lot more than meets the eye. The history of the Great Seal is a very fascinating story. I know there's a lot of skeptics about it. However, it is very intriguing. It goes back when Thomas Jefferson was president. And at the time, they were still building the White House, so they were staying in tents. And he had John Adams, who was part of his first official seal committee, to look for the perfect symbol. So, however, they come up with a lot of prototypes, designs, and all that, and still Jefferson was not satisfied. So just anxious to find this perfect image, this perfect symbol for the seal, the Great Seal. One night he was out for his nightly walk, and he come upon this man in the middle of the night. He was dressed in a black cloak. He hands Jefferson this box, and now Jefferson is just dazzled, like over this whole ordeal. He hands Jefferson this box, and this is what you're looking for. Thomas Jefferson goes back to his tent, opens the box up, and there it was. It's the same seal that's on the back of the dollar bill. A double-sided seal, and right then and there, he knew this is exactly what he was looking for. He even sent guards out to go try to find this man in the cloak. They literally could not find him. He disappeared. Interestingly enough, there's a hooded figure statue that happens to sit by the memorial for John Adams. Coincidence? I think not. Now next, my interview from 3 years ago with the late Doc Marquis from It's a God Thing Productions, 777.com, former member of the Illuminati. Now again, as I said earlier in the video, regardless of what you learn in school or in history books, he will show you, as I illustrate, the true meanings of each symbol from the front to the back of the dollar bill. The Great Seal of the United States, or is it the Great Seal of the Illuminati? But isn't it kind of mysterious that the seal with the pyramid on it was hidden from the American public for over 200 years? And in 1935, this seal here was finally revealed to the American public on the back of the dollar bill. It was put on by Henry Wallace, the President of Agriculture, and FDR's brand new Vice President, and FDR, Franklin Delaware Roosevelt himself. Now, everybody knows FDR is the leader of the Industrial Revolution. His great slogan, the New Deal. And you had the war going on. You had two banks trying to gain for control of the United States currency, the Bank of the United States of America and the Federal Reserve. But what the public was really completely unaware about, that both FDR and Henry Wallace, they had a spiritual advisor, a man named Nicholas Roerich. He was a Russian mystic. He was a direct student of occultist Madame H.P. Blavatsky. Now, during all this chaos going on with the wars, and you had the two banks here, FDR initiated an executive order to confiscate all American citizens' gold, and if you didn't turn it in, you would be arrested, because he said it now belonged to the Federal Reserve. Because you had the Bank of the United States of America and the Federal Reserve that came in 1913, and now under full control of our currency, which is not federal at all, it's a European Central Bank that completely dismantled we the people controlling our own currency. So to crown this, as Hitler, Mussolini, and the Pope were calling for the New order. He was calling for the New Deal. It meant a new world order. Order out of chaos, problem, reaction, solution. Financially and through the wars and everything, they are ready to push their new world order and to signify this. They put this on the back of the dollar bill to crown their achievement as a Nike Opus Novus Ordo Seclorum, means the new world order, new order of the ages, is now a crown and success.
So many things are so obvious, but people aren't seeing it. I'll give you, for instance, Dan, do you buy, or your listening audience, I'm going to ask everyone to do this if you've got one. Dan, reach into your pocket and see if you can pull out a dollar bill.
I don't have a dollar bill in my pocket, actually.
Oh, you're as poor as I am, I see.
I got one in my wallet.
Well, it's a good thing, I have all this memorized from my days in the Illuminati.
Well, I got one right here. That's all.
Okay, does anyone in your studio have a $1 bill that they can loan you?
Yeah, I got one in my hand.
Okay, turn it around to the reverse side, where you see the two great seals of the United States of America.
Yep.
Okay, now, if you notice, it says those are supposed to be the two great seals of the United States of America, correct?
Yep.
Those aren't. Those are the two seals of the Order of the Illuminati. And I'm going to prove it. As I said, now, I'm doing all this from memory, so I'm seeing the symbols in my head. At the very top, and again, ladies and gentlemen, you'll need a dollar bill for this. If you're trying to hunt down a dollar bill, go ahead, because I need to preface something first. Or look it up see if you can find the dollar bill online. Look on for the reverse side. Oh, gee. I completely forgot what I was going to preface here. Well, anyways, let's get into it then. At the very top of the seal itself, on the left-hand side, you'll notice that there's a pyramid, correct?
That's correct. Yep. The microphone.
Okay. Above the pyramid, you'll see a Latin expression that says Annuit Corruptus, and below it says Novus Ordo Seclorum. Translated from the ancient Latin, Annuit Corruptus Novus Ordo Seclorum means announcing the birth of a new world order. Now, if you notice, that pyramid, and you can count it, Dan, is made up of 13 steps. Now, in the occult world, there is two particular systems. One is known as numerology. Numerology is where you assign numbers to letters. Now, gematria will give you the definition to every single number. Now, 13 in gematria means depravity and rebellion. Now, just keep that on the top, in the back burner for now. So we have 13 steps to the pyramid, and if you notice, at the very top of the pyramid, there is a truncated triangle. Now, if you look at the pyramid, you can tell it's three-dimensional because on the left-hand side, you can see how it's shaded in to give it that three-dimensional effect.
Yep.
Okay, but that's not so with the triangle. You see, that's purposely kept out because that is not the all-seeing eye of God, or what some people call the eye of providence. If it was, it's in the wrong position. That point of the triangle should be pointing down, which would be God looking into the affairs of man. In this reverse position, it's man invading the heavenlies. If you take a good look at that eye, you can see that it is a left-handed eye. The reason the Illuminati used a left-handed eye is because it represents the left-hand path of witchcraft. In the occult world, if you follow the right-hand side, you follow supposedly the good side of witchcraft. If it's the left-hand side, you're following the dark path. Now, if you look at the base of the pyramid, you will see Roman numerals. Now, that should say MDCCLXXVI. That is the year 1776. That is, and specifically, it's May 1st, 1776. If I could show you this live, you'd see what I'm talking about. But it is on DVD 1, this whole explanation I'm going to give you.
Well, actually, as you're speaking right now, I got an illustration.
So you see, the whole of that, I'm sorry?
As you were speaking this, I got an illustration. When I was studying your DVDs long ago, I made copies on paper and everything. So I'm pointing out to the camera for those who are going to watch it on YouTube later. I'm pointing out to the camera as you're describing it in full color.
Oh, good. So the whole of that seal is saying that on May 1st, 1776, a new world order had been born. It would be headed by Lucifer and based on depravity and rebellion. Now, let's go over to the second seal, where you see the the eagle. If you notice, above the eagle's head, there is 13 stars with 28 guidelines or rays about them. 28 in Gematria is the number for perfection. Now, as we go down the eagle, you'll notice that the eagle is holding in between its beak a 13-letter banner. It says E pluribus unum. Again, from the Latin, E pluribus unum means one out of many. But the question is, Dan, one out of many what? What do you think it means when they say one out of many?
To me, it thinks out of all these gods, to them it's Lucifer.
Okay. Well, a lot of people have tried to tell me, well, we're talking about the United States. And I'm going, no. One out of many what? You see, when Weishaupt, Dr. Adam Weishaupt, the first head of the Order of the Illuminati, had created the Order, he was also infiltrating other occult schools and societies of his day and age and bringing them into the Illuminati. We're talking like the Masons, the Rosicrucians, they created Jacobinism and such. He was taking the best and the brightest minds out of those occult schools and putting them in the Illuminati. In essence, he was making one group out of many. That's what it's referring to. Now, if you have those illustrations, and hopefully you'll be able to show this to the people, the eagle, that is not the original bird of America. And again, in DVD 1, I will show you all the original documentations, the photos, everything, ladies and gentlemen. But the original bird that was used was the phoenix. Now, if we go by the ancient stories, the Egyptian mythologies in particular, the phoenix bird lived about 400 to 500 years, after which, when he was about to die, he would settle somewhere on a cliff, put together a nest, and as soon as that was done, he would burst into fire, and out of the ashes that was left behind, there was an egg, and in that new egg would reemerge a new phoenix bird, completing the cycle of reincarnation. So you see, it was never an eagle. It was always the phoenix bird. And again, the ancient drawings and such that they used for the first seal, the very first seal, you can look at it for yourself, was the phoenix bird, and remained so for over 50 years. Now, if you notice, the eagle is looking towards the right. Oh, it's right, I should say. Whenever anything like that looks towards its right, it's looking on in favor or something. If it's looking towards the left, it's looking in opposition. Just like, the Nazi warbird of World War II, if you notice, that eagle was looking towards the left. That's because it was looking in opposition to our way of living, our form of government. Now, the eagle the phoenix, I should say, is actually looking towards the other seal. We'll get to that in a minute. But if you drop down, you'll notice the eagle has a very unusual breastplate. There's 12 vertical lines at the very top, and then if you look below it, there's 6 sets of white fields, and then 7 sets of dark fields running up and down. 12 in gematria is the number for governmental perfection. 6 is the number for man. 7 is the number for God. Combined, just the shield alone, it is saying, through a perfect government, they're going to place man above God. Now, this is, remember, the Illuminati's version of a government. Remember, their version. And part of the 7-part plan, if you recall, Dan, was for them to get rid of all ordered governments in their day and age. Now, you continue down, you notice the legs of the eagle. Look at the toes, and you will find out that they have 8 talons or 8 claws. 8 in gematria is the number for new beginnings. Now, if you look at the left-hand claw, your left, the eagle is holding a cluster, an olive branch, that has 13 leaves and 13 berries. On the right-hand side, the eagle is holding, or the phoenix, is holding 13 arrows. Now, the olive branch is supposed to represent peace, and the berries is supposed to be the fruit of that peace. On the right-hand side, we have 13 arrows, which are supposed to represent our military might and ability to defend ourselves. But notice that the eagle or the phoenix claws are clenched. Whenever the claws are open, something's given. When it's clenched, something's being taken away. And if you notice at the bottom of the eagle, there is 9 tail feathers. Now, tail feathers, you ask any hunter, those are used for guidance and stability. Okay? But in gematria, 9 is the number for completion, or that which is finished. So in short, what this second seal is saying is that through a perfect government, man will be eternally placed above God, and that our peace and ability to defend ourselves will be taken away by force. However, through this new government, they will complete the work, or the new world order. Now, I wish I had the illustrations, because you see, ladies and gentlemen, there's something important you need to understand. There's one of the foulest, the foulest, the most evil of all occult symbols in existence is what's known as a hexagram. It is when you place a triangle, an equilateral triangle, and take a second one and put it on top of it to where you have a 6-pointed star. Once you do that, you put a circle around it, and that's what constitutes a hexagram. Now, as you all know, Dan, Revelation 13:18 tells us that the number of the beast is 666. Now, if I was to take a hexagram with a 6-pointed star and put 3 of them together, that would constitute a 666, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. And as you're speaking, I'm illustrating to the camera with the diagrams I got. So, like, people...
Do you have the ones that will reveal the 3 hexagrams?
Yep.
Okay, show the first one. The one where you see the 13 cluster of stars right above the eagle's head. Do you have that one there?
Yes, I do.
Okay, show that one, please.
Yep,
because you see, ladies and gentlemen, that cluster of stars hold the first hexagram. Now, let me ask a question for everyone who's listening. Why are there so many 13s on the back of the dollar bill? We have 13-letter Latin expressions. We have 13 steps to a pyramid, 13 olive branch leaves, berries, 13 arrows, the 6 and 7 on the breastplate of the dark and light lines make 13. Why are there so many 13s, Dan?
Because 13 is the number of rebellion.
More than that. They wouldn't have known that when it was created, would they? So what would most people think? What would most people think the 13 represents?
Oh, the average American thinks it represents the 13 colonies.
Well, that's true. That's what I hear most. But you know, originally, and people need to check their history here, we never had 13 colonies. That's what we've been taught. You see, I believe it was Maryland, that was part of, you know, New England, obviously, but they never became a colony till after the Declaration of Independence had been signed. I believe they answered to the governor of Connecticut. You only had originally 12 colonies, not 13. So 13 on the 2 seals wouldn't make sense. And trust me, when they were designing the 2 seals back then, all the founding fathers knew that there wasn't 13 colonies. But the 13 is needed. You see, Dan, do you have the second illustration there with the eagle?
Yes, I do, yep.
It's where the second hexagram is?
Yep.
Excuse me?
Yes, I do, yep.
Okay, show that. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, on that same seal, the one with the phoenix or the eagle, when you connect all the 13 together, it forms a giant hexagram, and around the eagle itself, the seal has a circle. So you have 2 hexagrams or 2 sixes. Now, if my premise is correct, there has to be a third one somewhere. And that's found on the other seal with the pyramid. You've got that one available, Dan?
Yes, I do.
Would you show that, please? Because when you connect, once again, ladies and gentlemen, all the hexagrams, all the 13s on the seal with the pyramid, it forms a giant hexagram, and the circle is right around it. You have a 666. Ladies and gentlemen, those are not the seals of the United States of America. I've seen those seals used throughout my 20 years when I was in the Illuminati. Now, and here's the important thing, to prove that these are not your seals, ladies and gentlemen, in any document, in the United States of America, such as a treaty, which is the highest form of law in America, with treaties, with executive orders, and things of that high nature, they must bear both seals of the order of the United States of America if the document is to be made legal by the law of the land. There is not one document that exists like that. Not one. There is no document that bear both seals of the United States of America. And the reason is because the pyramid seal, there's never been a cast or a die made for it. You have a cast or a die for the eagle, and it's been used thousands of times, but you don't have one that's ever been made with the pyramid. And by law, anything that's supposed to be legal by our government has to bear both those seals. And yet, it's the Secretary of State that's supposed to be in possession of both those seals. So how can they be in possession of something that's never been created?
All right, awesome. And is there anything you want to touch up more about the Great Seal?
Well, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is just one example of how the Illuminati had already began infiltrating America, even when it first started. Now, the 2 seals were not officially accepted as the 2 seals of the United States until 13 years later in 1789. Those two seals, which everyone carries in their pockets every day of their lives, those are not the seals of the United States of America. When you go through the whole of it, and I've only covered part of it, ladies and gentlemen, of what's really on the dollar bill, you'll find out for yourself in the end. There's no other conclusion. Those are not the seals of the United States of America. And when you think about the pyramid alone, what has an Egyptian pyramid got to do with Americana? Nothing that I know of. What about you, Dan?
Nothing. I mean, it was supposed to be, we're not even a desert. I mean, like, we don't even have the same kind of climate. And, nothing at all, actually. Nothing at all to do with Egypt.
Exactly. So what would it be doing there if it was something American? If, you would have something else. But in this case, as I said, those are not the seals of the United States of America. They never have been. Those are the two seals of the Order of Illuminati. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you will just look at The Arrival of the Antichrist, which is DVD 1 of my series, take a good look at the original bird that was used on the first two seals. Now, you'll find that they were phoenix birds. They were not the eagle. The eagle was only first put on the dollar bill by FDR.
Yep, that was back in the 1930s, and him and Henry Wallace, and it wasn't a coincidence, they both had the same spiritual advisor, Nicholas Roerich, who was extreme occultist. Wasn't he a student of Madame P. Blavatsky, Nicholas Roerich?
Yes, he was. Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky of the Theosophical Society.
So it's not a coincidence, folks, and a lot of people glorify FDR without knowing who that man really was. I mean, it wasn't a coincidence. He was the 32nd president of the United States and also a 32nd degree Mason. Henry Wallace became his new vice president, which is the 33rd vice president and a 33rd degree Freemason. They were heavily tied into the occult with Nicholas Roerich. I mean, the story goes on from there, but I mean, folks, there's a lot of deception out there, a lot of stuff hidden in plain view, plain sight, that especially on the dollar bill, everybody sees that dollar bill a day. Bankers, but have no clue what those seals mean. And the symbol is like reveals to those who can't see, reveals to those who can see, and conceals to those who can't, which is you, the general public. And what Doc's trying to explain to you, the Illuminati have been communicating with themselves for eons and rubbing it right in your face every day, and you are completely oblivious to it.
Well, let's consider another quick example. Washington, D.C. is laid out using Masonic and Illuminati symbols. If you were to look on the map where the mall is, that's considered the most powerful, the most influential political power center in the world. Now, when you look at a surveyor's map, a surveyor's map that's made up of little square blocks or oblongs, and it's a lot 188 or lot 50. You ever seen anything like that, Dan?
Yes, I have. I'm actually trying to find the diagram in the book here. But yeah, I don't know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, the lot that giant political center of Washington, D.C. sits at, which includes the White House and the Capitol, that is lot 666.
Amazing. And, this is not a coincidence, folks. This is all strategically...
No, it's not. It's anything but a coincidence. Look at the Washington Monument. It's a giant obelisk, isn't it?
It is, yep.
Right. Now, what most people don't realize is that the obelisk themselves has a mystery to it. First of all, in the occult world, if you look at most of the ancient obelisks, they had a circle at the bottom. Now, compare this, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to, the Egyptian obelisk that's sitting in front of the Vatican right now. That is Cleopatra's Needle, as it was called. You will also see that around it, there are 8 sets of double lines. In the Order of the Illuminati and throughout the occult world, there's 8 major Sabbaths. And in the Order of the Illuminati, every single one of those Sabbaths call for a human sacrifice. Now, when you look at the one, as I said, in front of the Vatican, there's sets of double lines. That obelisk is actually a giant heliocentric sun calendar. Whenever the shadow falls in between any of those double sets of lines, it's a night of human sacrifice. That's the secret behind the obelisk. It's a giant heliocentric sun-centered calendar. Now, the obelisk itself in Washington, D.C., by any chance there, do you know how tall it is?
From the ground up, 555 feet tall, which is in Death and Resurrection numerology, if I'm not mistaken.
But it can't be standing just on itself.
Nope.
There has to be more in the ground, isn't it?
It is, yep. And exactly
There has
111
to be.
feet.
And when I talked to the groundskeeper, find out that there's exactly 111 feet below ground. 555 and 111 is how much, Dan?
666. And you folks, you could go verify this information.
Exactly.
666 feet. 111 feet on the ground.
It's 666 again.
Exactly.
Now, as I said, the whole of that area of Washington, D.C. was created using Masonic and Illuminati symbols. If I had the maps, well, if I could show the maps right now, I could illustrate this for everyone.
I'll put them on
But
screen
again,
for you.
this is on DVD 1 and on DVD 4. You'll find all this information.
Well, when I cut this video later, I'll put the diagrams in there for you, so people could see.
Please do, so everyone can see them. Because, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been so carefully laid out, so carefully planned, that when you see these things, you're not seeing anything. You're looking at these things every day, but you don't see what's there. But then again, you're not supposed to. You weren't trained in the order of the Illuminati like I was. But I'll tell you this much, ladies and gentlemen, once you start seeing these things, you're never going to miss them again.
The history of this mysterious Great Seal goes deep. There are many stories, many versions, such as the one from GreatSeal.com is what we learn in the schools. But once again, schools and the education system love to hide the truth from the public. And I want to point out before we go any further that many, not all, but many of the founding fathers were in the occult and secret societies such as Freemasonry, the Rosicrucian Order, and the nefarious Illuminati. From his book, occult researcher Dr. Robert Hieronimus, his book called Founding Fathers, Secret Societies, Freemasons, Illuminati, Rosicrucians, and the Decoding of the Great Seal, he points out there were 3 official seal committees formed to come up with a concept for the Great Seal. The first seal committee was formed and appointed on July 4th, 1776, right after Congress ratified the Declaration of Independence. This team consisted of Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Pierre-E. Simitry. Now, Benjamin Franklin, he came up with the first proposal, and now if you notice right off the bat, you're going to see a lot of occultic symbology within these seals. This proposal came from Thomas Jefferson, Simitry's proposal, and nobody came to an agreement. So a second team was formed just a year later, January of 1777. This team was Francis Hopkinson, John Moran Scott, James Lavelle, and William Churchill Houston. Some of the concepts, such as you see here from Hopkinson, more occultic symbology. Another one from which he designed on the $50 bill at the time. And no agreement came upon, so a third and final team was formed. This team was formed and appointed May 4th, 1782. This team consisted of Charles Thompson, Arthur Middleton, John Rutledge, and Elias Budnott. And a little while after that, Arthur Lee replaced John Rutledge, and William Barton was enlisted later as a consultant. Now, Dr. Robert Hieronimus points out that Charles Thompson, the first Secretary of Congress, was responsible for coordinating the final design of the Great Seal, a close associate of the German Petitius and perhaps a Rosicrucian. And Charles Thompson's drawing for the Third Committee. Now, if you look at the occultic significance of this, many occultic researchers believe that this is a phoenix. However, the official story says today that it's a bull-headed eagle. And as here was Barton and Thomas who borrowed this design from the committees to arrive at this proposal for the reverse symbol. And the Great Seal today is exactly what's on the back of the dollar bill. So could have these committees have designed this, or could it simply be the seal that was handed to Thomas Jefferson from the unknown man in the cloak? The unknown man and the seal. Some researchers in the esoteric tradition, including Paul Foster Case, Robert Kornacki, and P.W. Price, suggest that our knowledge of the seal's history and meaning will always remain incomplete because its inspiration was derived from an unseen, hidden, secret, or unknown source. This unknown source has been personified as a secret society, invisible and unverifiable to our physical senses, but represented by Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and the nefarious Illuminati. And once again, the man in the cloak, the unknown man that sits on John Adams' grave. Many believe that is John Adams' widow, waiting for him to return, but many people also believe, because we don't believe in coincidence, that it is that man in the cloak that handed Thomas Jefferson the Great Seal of the United States, or is it the Great Seal of the Illuminati? And now we will speak to a close and personal friend of mine. He's an occultic, secret society, biblical researcher, and historian. He's a radio talk show host of FOJCradio.com and hosts the Midnight Ride on Now You See TV. That's nystv.org. He's also an author. His name is David Carrico, and one of his many books, and this one in particular, The Great Seal of the United States and its Occultic Meanings, David Carrico will reveal to you the secrets, the hidden secrets within the symbols of the dollar bill, and also tie in the Masonic and occultic connection that goes along with this. Now this book is available right now on FOJCradio.com.
My name is David Carrico. My wife Donna and I, we are to blame for FOJC Radio at FOJCradio.com. In Evansville, Indiana, we've had an apologetic counter-cult ministry for many decades, all the way back to the early 80s. We do the Midnight Ride on Now You See TV every Saturday night, and we have a Brighteon channel. We have stuff everywhere. You can go to our website and our FOJCradio.com, go to our ministry news page, and we have thousands of videos, teachings, resources, podcasts, you name it. In our book, The Great Seal of the United States, Its Occult Meaning, there are some things that are very obvious. On the front of the book, you have the unfinished pyramid with the all-seeing eye of Freemasonry on top of it. Novus Ordo Seclorum, New World Order in Latin. It symbolizes the ancient goal of secret societies, of the establishment of what in Scripture we see in Revelation 13 as the reign of the beast and the false prophet. Now, this went on the dollar bill in 1935, but this reflects ancient beliefs of secret societies that go back literally before the birth of Christ. And in the history of our nation, on page 85 here, there is a chart that documents 16 families that were in Massachusetts in the 1600s before the United States became a country in 1776. And if you talk about Christian America, you have to think pre-1776, when many Puritans come to America, and there was truly, in many of the colonies, a real godly foundation. Beginning in 1776, this began the corruption of the infiltration of Freemasonry and secret societies. And these 16 families here that we document on a little chart here on page 85, Freemasons call them star families. And these came from Europe with the express purpose and intent of using their money and influence to establish the secret societies, and the goal to eventually, as Manly P. Hall and Francis Bacon, they believed that America would be the springboard for the New World Order. And this began with Francis Bacon's book, The New Atlantis, using America to be the fulfillment of the utopian government in Atlantis. And we're certainly seeing this happen. And many of these families, we're talking about the Rockefeller family, the Taft family, the Pillsbury family, these, the Harriman family with railroads, Payne family, Standard Oil, these are the wealthy families that are very old, and they've been here with the purpose of establishing the one world order. And this is the way that this one world order has been progressing for a very long time, and we're seeing now what I believe is the culmination of the interpretation of the Great Seal of America. We have on the pyramid, it's unfinished, and it's awaiting for the capstone to be put on it. And I believe the men that designed this and have carried out this plan of the secret societies for many centuries, I believe that it is their intent within even my lifetime that they're going to put the capstone on the pyramid and bring to realization the one world order. All right, the symbols on the dollar bill, many of them are very obvious. Of course, the pyramid with 1776 and Roman numerals at the base, and many people believe this is the date of the founding of America. I believe, as I write in this book, that this is the date of the founding of the Illuminati, which we have a chapter on here, of the Adam Weishaupt Illuminati. We have the Novus Ordo Seclorum, the New World Order. We have many symbols that are admittedly Masonic. And the Scottish Rite Journal was called the New Age magazine for many years. And then when people like myself began to speak out on the New Age and Freemasonry, they changed the name to the Scottish Rite Journal. But in the New Age magazine, April 1960, they admit to much of the Masonic symbolism. And this is from their own writings of all of the symbology that's Masonic. And the 13 leaves in the olive branch. And of course, there were the 13 colonies, but there's also Friday the 13th. This was the day when Jacques de Molay was executed. And of course, the 13 people in the coven, there's tremendous symbology for the number 13 in the occult. And they had the 13 bars and stripes in the shield, the 13 feathers in the tail, the 13 arrows, 13 letters in E pluribus unum on the ribbon, 13 stars in the green crest above, the 32 long feathers representing the 32 degrees in Freemasonry, the granite stone in the pyramid, of course, with the all-seeing eye in it, and Annuit Coptus, God has prospered all. And the all-seeing eye, which of course is one of the central symbols here on the dollar bill, this represents the eye of Osiris, not the god of the Bible, but the god of the pyramid, the Egyptian god Osiris. And it also represents the eye of Lucifer, Lucifer is the god of Freemasonry. This is not maybe it's so, it absolutely is so. You can absolutely document this right from Grand Lodge material. Manly Palmer Hall talked about the seething energies of Lucifer having to be in the Freemason's hand before him to move up in the craft. Albert Pike in Morals and Dogma talked about the light of Lucifer. There is no doubt that this God that's depicted on the Great Seal, it's not the God of the Bible. It is the eye of Lucifer, which Freemasons worship. According to the Masonic magazine, is all Masonic symbolism, and Freemasonry is all over this thing. And in 1935, in the Roosevelt administration, when this went on, Roosevelt was a Freemason. Henry Wallace, his vice president, Henry Morgenthau, Secretary of the Treasury. Freemasons were just all over this thing. It's Masonic symbolism, and it's a prophecy. The Great Seal is a prophecy. It's a Masonic prophecy that is going, they're doing everything they can to bring it about, and they will. It will come about, but it will not be the utopia they think it will be. It will be a nightmare for all of those that are fooled by it. And it will be indeed just what the Bible says, the reign of the beast and the false prophet.